Tell us a bit about your experiences with mystery. So you set up with me the interview, which was more than 4 hours long. So that's fucking historic right there. Plus, even more historic, the debate between Ross Jeffries and Mystery. You helped set that up too. From your perspective, what are some of the greatest things you have learned from Mystery himself as his wingman and as his business partner?
Yeah, so man, there's so much to learn from Mystery. I mean, even just going way back to before I met him, right? I was intrigued by the idea that you don't have to feel confident to talk to women. That was one that blew me away because I have a little bit of a natural background. My story is not the typical story of the guy that didn't have any results and he found the community and he read some books and watched some videos and he just transformed his life and now he's a master seducer. I don't identify myself as a master. It's not my story. I actually did okay for myself in high school and even junior high, believe it or not. I put myself out there socially. Um, but one of the biggest pieces of advice that was given back then, right, in the mid to late 90s, there was no YouTube, there were no ebooks, there was nothing, right? Uh, it was be confident. Everybody said be confident. So what happened was I ended up acting confident. Even if I wasn't feeling confident, I would act confident and pretend to be confident, and then sort of get this backwards feedback mechanism kicking into where I actually started to feel confident over time, right? But Mystery was one of the first people that came along and said, you don't have to be confident. He said, if you're going to jump out of an airplane and with a parachute, do you want to be confident or do you want to be competent? And then he said, you wouldn't want to get all fouled up and not pull that ripcord. Right. So I think one of the most innovative things about Mystery is he's one of the first coaches that came along and said, fuck how you're feeling on the inside. Go through the motions, approach, get some material, learn some structure, start taking action, and the confidence will come in time. Right. So that was my first huge takeaway from Mystery was that notion right there that even when I'm not feeling confident, I can go in and take some action. That's one of the big ones that first hit me. Um, when meeting Mystery, gosh, there's so much. I've learned so much from him. So, one thing I'll say that a lot of people probably don't know about Mystery is he's very capable of freestyling. Some people think, oh, yeah, if you learn Mystery stuff, if you take training with Mystery, he's going to just turn you into this robot that just repeats lines. Let me be clear. Mystery does use material. If he's really interested in a woman, he's going to use tried and true material. If he's demoing for clients, he's using tried and true material. But he's capable of putting all of this material together in unconventional ways and mixing it all up. And he's capable of freestyling, you know. So this is something that was surprising when I met him. Uh, he showed me all sorts of little hidden details about the M3 model that I never knew until I met him as well. I had read his book, I don't know, 5 or 6 times before meeting him. I'd also read all of his other books. I'd seen all of his blog posts, every video he'd ever posted, probably on the internet. I consumed all of that, right? It just, his advice was just head over, head and shoulders above the rest, right? Back in the mid 2000s. So when I met him, I came in kind of armed with like knowing his teachings, but he showed me little hidden details that I wasn't fully aware of. For example, to give you an actual example, A3 should last twice as long as A2. So in A2, we're demonstrating value, we're looking for IOIs from the woman, but in A3, we're qualifying her and we're getting her to DHV to us. And then we are rewarding with IOIs, right? This is me using M3 model language, right? So he said it should take twice as long for her to get IOIs from us. We want to be a little bit harder to get. So it sounds like a small little detail, but I always envisioned like opening and then A2 and A3 were kind of side by side. But the timeline for A3 is twice as long as A2. That's just a little example of many examples that uh, ways that I learn things from him. I'm always trying to peel back the layers and understand what's really going on inside his head, right? Because we all can see his method. We can see the routines that he puts out there, the structure, the material, and everything. But I've always been interested, like, what are the frames that he operates from? And not to plug our online workshop here, but on our last live online workshop, the last two of them, we did a section called Advanced Frames, and this was, you know, the inner game of mystery. He's an outer game kind of guy, right? He teaches the tactics, the strategies, and so forth. He was even opposed to this. He's like, I don't want to teach advanced frames. I'm not an inner game guy. And I was like, you use more frames than you realize. And I explained to him, the various micro level and macro level frames that he operates through. So a frame is a belief, accurate or not, that defines the underlying meaning of an interaction, right? Or our experience. So a macro level frame is like our paradigm, like our view of the world, right? Micro level frames are frames that we impose on somebody in the moment. For example, Mystery will act like the girl is hitting on him, right? So he'll be like, slow down over there. You'll get your turn, right? Or he'll act like she's being kind of socially belligerent, Oh my God, does she talk this much all the time? She's pooping words over here. I can smell it, right? He's setting a little micro level frame that she talks too much, but he's doing it for laughs, for fun, right? Then he has his macro level frames like guy chases girl, right? Or the abundance mentality, or there are no scarce resources and there's room at the top for everyone. These are his macro level frames and his micro level frames. So I had to sort of winch this stuff out of him through living with him in various countries, talking to him for hours on end on WhatsApp and whatnot. Mystery is truly one of my best friends. I admire him as a mentor. Uh, I love partnering up with him on projects. I've learned a ton from him, but I know him on a very human level as well. And I had to winch out a lot of this inner game from him and sort of craft it and show it to him. And then he was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we could teach it. It's gotten a lot of positive feedback. The guys that take our workshop really appreciate the advanced frames portion of the workshop because it's a window into Mystery's mind, which he doesn't, I think, fully understand himself.
Interesting. You mentioned about getting women to DHV to you or to qualify to you. Could you give
Mhm.
some examples of how guys can do that?
Yeah, so that's the crux of A3, right? So once again, if we're doing the M3 model, mystery method, so we demonstrate value to the group through an indirect opener, an opinion opener, a story about ourselves, a rant, multiple threads, uh, multiple openers stacked on top of one another. We get IOIs, indicators of interest from the woman, right? And then we will slowly reciprocate those IOIs. Sometimes it's very subtle, right? Sometimes it's just shooting her a look, looking at her up and down and then going back to what you're saying. What does she do in response to that? Does she touch you? Does she try to jump in the conversation? Does she try to tell a story? There's different ways that we can sort of evoke DHVs from her. And then there's the more explicit ones, right? Where you just qualify, where you finally turn like to her and you say, okay, now it's your turn. Who are you? Right. And then Mystery will neg sometimes, all right, you're losing me. And then he turns to the side, if she's not, even if she's DHVing just fine, right? He will intermittently reward and he'll intermittently punish. Once again, to speak in the M3 model lingo, I'm not saying that I like to view things through this punishing and rewarding lens, but um, so it's qualifying, right? Or if you DHV well enough, the woman may just jump in and try to tell stories too, you know? Uh, so when she interjects, when she touches us, when she responds to qualification questions, these are her DHVs to us. Mystery breaks everything down into IOIs, IODs, DHVs, and DLVs. You're either demonstrating higher value, demonstrating lower value, and you're either giving someone an IOI or an IOD, right? And when she DHVs to us, that is an IOI. The very fact that she's trying to tell a story about herself or convey herself in a flattering way to us is an indicator of interest. They're one and the same. Mystery very much uh, tries to gear his game towards positivity uh, in the sense that what he wants to talk about. So, most guys approach the game from a frame of what do I have to say to get interest from the woman. They observe the situation. Okay, how should I go in? Mystery doesn't overanalyze a group before going in. He's much more centered in who he is and the material that he wants to run. So when he goes into a group, he's not, hey guys, can I get in here and tell a story? Right? He's not feeling things out. He's going in assuming that what he's about to talk is purely the fact that he's interested in it himself, right? So he's fascinated by something on his mind, right? Something having to do with AI, something to have to do with, his Google Earth opener, right? He goes in with this sense of fascination, being fascinated with what he's talking about, and he's looking for women that hook into that fascination. And some women don't, right? Some of them are like, who is this guy, right? But the ones that do are going to be really into him. This is a big thing that I don't know if people understand about Mystery's game too. All right. Mystery does not get every set. He gets approach anxiety. He gets performance anxiety when we're dropped into a new city and we don't know anybody and we're going out and we're jet lagged and we don't know the venues to go to. He's human as well. And when he does his approaches, he's less concerned with how do I get every single woman I want. He's more concerned with running his style of game and letting the woman gravitate to that. So he may get blown out by 7 out of 10 sets. And usually it's not a bad blowout. It's not like, hey, fuck off, get out of here, right? Because he goes indirect. He wins over the group. He charms everybody. He does amazing sleight of hand. He does not do cheesy magic. He's not, pulling a fucking dove out of his jacket. He's like making a cigarette vanish. He's taking a ring and, making it disappear. He does cool sleight of hand. And so usually the group accepts him. But then when he gives IOIs towards his woman of interest, she's not necessarily always interested in him, right? He will lose 5 out of 10 sets, 6 out of 10 sets, 7 out of 10 sets. But the 2 or 3 that hook, they hook really hard. This is kind of tying into what I was talking about earlier, where the community is obsessed with what the science says women are attracted to. When you build your game according to the science of mate selection and what women are drawn to, you become like a spotlight that shines in all directions, right? When you appreciate the science and acknowledge the science, but when you focus on the art of the game and you craft the art according to what you like, the style of game that works for you, that you can run sustainably over a long period of time, you become like a laser beam. Not everybody can see that spotlight, but when you shine that laser beam on one person, it's a very intense beam of energy. And the women that are into you are really fucking into you. And when you craft your game that way as well, instead of constantly searching for how should I be, how should I act to get the girl, you are able to refine that skill. You're able to get really, really good at running your style of game. So it becomes even more powerful. This is about living a life of extreme congruence and getting great results, right? And here's one more funny thing. Let me throw one more twist on this story, okay? You would think that by making your game more laser-like, you're going to get less women total, but the ones that like you are really going to like you. I have found that when I make my game very laser-like, I actually have more options as well, because women want a guy that walks to his own beat. Women like guys that don't look for approval from the outside. Women are interested in men that can sort of break social norms and get away with it, or that are just congruent in their identity. So it's just across the board, it's a win for any guy that's still made it to the end of this podcast. If you could take away anything from what I'm saying, don't obsess over the science of mate selection. Learn it, let it color your game a bit, but focus on the art of the game. And for the guys that are really into the science and they just want to get as many women as they possibly can, fine, you know. Uh, but how much coaching and advice do you really need on that? Do you really need a coach to tell you just make a bunch of money, dress really well, and act like a celebrity? You know, you don't need anybody. That should be almost self-evident, you know. Um, so anyway, I'll digress with that.